There's a certain kind of wealthy family you'll never see on social media. No flashy cars, no branded merch, no course selling you their secrets. Their name might be on a small plaque somewhere in town, a hospital wing, a library, a park bench, and that's about the only trace they leave. Their money doesn't come from a startup or a trend. It comes from a business their family has quietly owned for generations, one so unglamorous that nobody ever thinks to ask about it. Here's what makes old money different from new money. New money chases attention. Old money avoids it on purpose, because attention invites competition, and competition is exactly what these businesses were built to avoid in the first place. I dug into 12 of these businesses, the kind that built and preserved multi-generational wealth long before anyone was talking about side hustles or passive income. A few of them still exist today, quietly, in towns you've probably driven through. Stick around for the last one. It's the strangest, and it proves that some of these families are still collecting checks today from a decision their great-great-grandparents made over a century ago. Let's get into it. Number 1. The Family Trust Company. Before there were financial advisors on TikTok, wealthy families created private trust companies to manage their own money across generations, handling everything from investments to estate planning to keeping the next generation from blowing through the family fortune. This isn't a relic. The family office industry managing this kind of generational wealth is valued at over $20 billion in 2026, and with roughly $124 trillion expected to pass between generations in the United States by 2048, this quiet, invisible industry is only getting bigger. You'll never see an ad for one. You have to already be inside the world to even know it exists. Number 2. Timberland ownership. Owning forest land is one of the oldest and steadiest ways old money has stayed wealthy, because trees are one of the only assets on Earth that keep growing in value while you do nothing at all. Well-managed timberland is generating returns of 4 to 8% a year in 2026, and it comes with a bonus most people don't know about. Companies now pay landowners just to leave the trees standing longer through carbon credit programs, which means some timberland owners are getting paid for the wood and paid again for not cutting it down yet. Number 3. Title insurance companies. Every time a home changes hands, somebody has to insure the title, and that business has quietly stayed in the hands of a small number of old, established companies for generations. It's one of the highest margin types of insurance that exists, because claims are rare. Almost all the real work happens before the policy is ever issued, when someone combs through decades of property records to make sure the title is clean. You're not really buying protection. You're buying certainty, and certainty has always been worth paying for. Number 4. Toll roads and bridges. Somewhere back in the last century, a family or a company got the rights to charge a toll on a bridge or a stretch of road, and depending on how that agreement was structured, some of those rights are still generating income today, decades after the original construction cost was paid off. It's about as close to a perpetual motion machine as a business can get. People need to cross the river. The bridge is still standing. The toll never really goes away. Number 5. Private water utilities. Most people assume water is run entirely by the government, but in a lot of towns, water service was built out privately over a century ago and never got bought back. Investor-owned water utilities are a small, unglamorous, but incredibly stable slice of infrastructure, because water isn't optional, and switching providers usually isn't even possible for the customer. It's one of the quietest monopolies still legally operating in this country. Number 6. Cemetery perpetual care trusts. Every time a burial plot is sold, a portion of that sale, often around 10%, is required by law to go into a perpetual care trust, a fund that exists to maintain the cemetery forever. That trust then generates investment income indefinitely, which means a family that has owned a cemetery for generations isn't just profiting from selling plots. They're sitting on a trust fund that's been quietly compounding since the first burial. Demand for this business, unfortunately, never really goes away. Now here's where this list shifts. Everything up to this point has been about businesses tied to land, property, and infrastructure. From here forward, we move into old money businesses built on something different: taste, access, and exclusivity. The kind of wealth that isn't about owning a utility, but about controlling who gets in the room. Number 7. Fine art and antiques auction houses. Long before art became an investment trend, a handful of family-run auction houses controlled the entire market for how wealthy families bought, sold, and passed down valuable objects. These businesses profit whether the market is up or down because they take a commission on both sides of every sale, and generations of trust and reputation are almost impossible for a new competitor to replicate, no matter how much money they throw at it. Number 8. Private membership clubs. Country clubs, yacht clubs, and old line social clubs aren't really selling golf or sailing. They're selling controlled access to other wealthy people, and that access has always been worth a premium most members never even question. Some of the oldest clubs in the country have waiting lists that outlive the people on them, and membership itself, in certain clubs, can be bought and sold like an asset, quietly, without ever being advertised. Number 9. Commodity trading and grain merchant houses. Before modern agricultural markets existed, a small number of family-run trading houses controlled the buying, storing, and selling of grain and raw commodities between farmers and the rest of the world. Some of these firms have operated continuously for well over a century, because once you control the physical movement of a commodity, everyone downstream has to go through you, whether they like it or not. Number 10. Heritage manufacturing. Certain family-owned distilleries, tanneries, and specialty manufacturers have been making the exact same product, using the exact same process, for well over 100 years, and that history is the entire product. You can't manufacture 100 years of reputation. A new competitor with better equipment and more money still can't sell what a heritage brand sells, which is the simple fact that your family has been doing this since before your customers' grandparents were born. Number 11. Private banks. Long before Wall Street and consumer banking apps, private banks existed specifically to serve a small number of wealthy families, handling lending, custody, and investment decisions with a level of discretion a retail bank was never built to offer. Many of today's largest private wealth divisions inside major banks actually started as small, independent private banks serving just a handful of old money families, quietly, for generations, before anyone else even knew they existed. And now, number 12, the one I told you to remember. It's railroad land grant royalty trusts. Here's the strange part of American history behind this one. In the 1800s, the federal government handed enormous tracts of land to railroad companies as an incentive to build tracks across the country. Some of those railroads eventually spun off the land itself, along with the mineral and oil rights underneath it, into separate royalty trusts, structures that exist purely to collect income from that land and pay it out to shareholders. Here's why this matters more than everything else on this list. Some of these trusts are still paying out dividends today, over 150 years after the original land grant was issued. From oil, gas, and mineral activity happening on land the government gave away for free during the age of the steam locomotive. Nobody in that original transaction could have possibly imagined oil wells, wind turbines, or in some cases, today's AI data centers, sitting on that same land generations later. The railroad is almost beside the point now. The land underneath it just kept getting more valuable, decade after decade, no matter what era it passed through. This is old money at its purest. Nobody had to keep innovating. Nobody had to keep reinventing the business. A decision made in 1875 is still quietly paying someone's descendants in 2026. Here's the thing about every single business on this list. None of them were built to grow fast. They were built to last. That's the entire difference between old money and new money. New money is chasing the next big thing. Old money already found something that works, and its only real strategy is to keep it working for as long as humanly possible. Most people look at businesses like these and see something boring, outdated, maybe even irrelevant. But boring is exactly the point. A business that's still standing after 100 years wasn't boring by accident. It survived wars, recessions, and complete shifts in technology because it was built around something that doesn't go out of style, land, trust, access, or time itself. You don't need a 100-year-old family name to learn from this. Pick one mechanism from this list, patience, trust, access, or land, and ask yourself which one you could start building today that your own family might still be quietly benefiting from 100 years from now. If one of these 12 surprised you, drop a comment and tell me which one. If you know someone who'd find the last one as wild as I did, send them this video. And if you made it all the way to the end, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.